Hello and welcome to ZHTV. I'm your host, Trinidad, and I'm joined as always by Mitch Keating. Mitch, the 2024 AFL home and away season is done. The bottom 10 are locked in, and that means that the draft order is locked in. So we're going to take a look at the first 10 picks. So let's look at the draft order here. Obviously, Richmond finishing on the bottom with the first pick.
Yeah, it's first time in I think it's about 17 years since they finished on the bottom, and I think it's been 20 years since they've had pick one. They took Brett Deledio in 2004, so obviously some time between those selections now, and it's certainly a new era at Punt Road, so it's certainly exciting for a contingent of Richmond fans who are looking towards the future, not so much dwelling on what the past few months have been, but yeah, this is going to be very exciting. And pick one at this stage might not be their only first round pick, but there's plenty to play out between now and draft night for sure.
Yep, absolutely. And of course, bottom 10, except for Collingwood, they're not going to get much out of this video because they do not have a pick in the top 10.
Yeah, well, obviously for any side and their fans who aren't playing finals, you have something to look forward to most years. Unfortunately for the Pies, yeah, you can go check out maybe one of our other videos. They won't have a pick until I think it's in the 30s or 40s. So then they've only got about really three in by the time it's pick 50. It doesn't mean they can't move back into the first round, but you're going to have to give up some good capital to get in there. So that pick that they had for this year traded to Fremantle last year for Lachie Schultz, which has been well documented, and that gives Freo 2 picks to round out the top 10. And this is what we have at the end of the home and away season, but certainly could look very different by the end of the trade period, and even heading into draft night when we have pick swaps. In the build up to and live on draft night. So this is what it is now. This is what we're working with. You'd think most of these would stay where they are. We might have a father-son selection here or there, or an academy selection here or there, but this is pretty much what the bones of the top 10 will look like.
Yep, of course we know Levi Ashcroft coming in for Brisbane father-son, so this might look different, but we'll take a look at pick one now, and this is your pick for pick one, Finn O'Sullivan from Koroy.
Yeah, this is going to be a really fascinating pick. I reckon you could throw a blanket over maybe 4 or 5 prospects for who the Tigers might want. I think a midfielder is probably the way to go, just given what the top end profile of this year's pool is as well. Entered the year as very midfield heavy. We've seen a lot of good key position players come through and stake their claim as top 10 prospects, but I think that top line of teenagers has remained the same, and most of them are midfielders who certainly bring their own strengths here and there. And Finn's is big body, great contested ball winner. Not too tall, and a lot of midfielders in this draft don't have that big height and frame, but certainly know how to win the ball at the contest and get themselves on the outside. And Finn's no different. Been absolute star for Oakley Chargers for the last couple of seasons, as well as Vic Country. Had a bit of an injury hit year this year that's kind of hurt his stocks a little bit. But I think he entered the year with enough runs on the board to really stake his claim as a pick one chance. And it's just been glimpses that I think we've been able to take from his year this year that have really helped his case once again. So he's part of an elite Oakley Chargers engine room. And I think for Richmond, they're going to have a really tough decision to make. I think Finn's the one. Really, in my personal view, Levi Ashcroft is the best prospect in the draft, but obviously he's out of reach for 17 clubs. So Finn's the one. If not, Jagga Smith, Harvey Langford, these are some of the kids we'll talk about with the next few picks for sure. But if I'm Richmond, I don't think there's going to be too hard to stuff this pick up, which I think a lot of clubs certainly would dread holding a selection so high. But yeah, I think Finn's the one for the Tigers. There isn't a Harley Reid this year that he goes, yep, sweet, get him. We've got it. We can. They'll do a lot of work. I think the Tigers that they're on top of what they already have done for the last 18 months. So yeah, I think Finn's the one.
Yep. Absolutely. And just before we go on to pick number 2, big shout out to Footy Stuff YouTube. He puts together a lot of compilation videos of all these draft prospects. So head over to his YouTube channel if you want to take a deeper look at some of these prospects. So moving now on to the second pick, which of course is for North Melbourne, and we've got Luke Trainor.
This is kind of an anomaly selection when you look at probably the top 5 or 6, and I think North are in a very peculiar position. I'll get to that in a sec. But first on Luke, elite key defender who has shown an ability to also play further up the ground if needed. Some might know him as the match winner in Vic Metro's undefeated championships series. Kicked that goal after the siren to clinch this year's Carnival title. But elite intercept player. And I think what stood out for him this year was his ability in the AFL Academy when you're coming up against VFL clubs. Took out best on ground honours in his first appearance, and then backed that up really strongly against Footscray in their second one. So he's proven at just about any level he's played at this year that he can really be quite demanding in the air. But most importantly as well, that a lot of clubs will be very excited about is his ball use and his clean ball work. I think it's something we saw from Dan Curtin last year as a commanding key defender who is really plays like a player at 180 centimetres, but Luke's at 194. And the year before that, Lewis Hayes was another one. You have to get a crack in at Essendon, but these kind of tall defenders who are just so damaging with the ball and feet as well as they are behind play. So yeah, he's going to be really interesting. So the situation for North Melbourne is that I don't think Luke has a chance to go pick one, and I don't think that North will have to be using pick 2 to get him either. So do they look to split that selection and try and get a couple picks in the top 10, potentially get Luke Trainor in a couple spots later? So if, for instance, if Richmond get pick 6 off the Suns and pick 9 off Fremantle, which they very well could do in losing players like Dan Rioli and Shea Bolton, do they potentially look to package those picks, get the first 2 selections in the draft, and then North might be able to get Trainor and then someone else maybe closer to pick 10. So that's something they're certainly going to have to weigh up. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's an easy option to just split pick 2. That is very hard to get the right amount of buyers, especially with North wanting to stay in this at the top end of this year's draft class. So that's what I would be looking to do. I think there is a good chance that the Trainor is available at that pick 5, pick 6 mark. Can't guarantee it by any means. But I think they're going to be a club that wants to look outside of the midfield group, given just how they've drafted over the past 6-7 years, and what their list needs are. And I think it's an option for them to potentially look and just come back out of the top couple of picks and instead look to get someone in like Trainor and a second top 10 selection.
Yeah, interesting stuff. So North always active in the draft these past couple of years. So moving over to pick number 3 now, obviously the Eagles. You've gone with Sid Draper, who's that tough midfielder.
Yeah, he's probably the kid I like the most in this top bracket. He had a bit of a delayed start to his year, but a bit like we spoke about on O'Sullivan, he had more than enough runs on the board last year. Took out the SA MVP for their Carnival as a bottom major last year, and then has really stepped up at times this year. But I think the most tantalising thing about his campaign is his form at the Sample senior level. So we're talking, while we've seen a few teenagers play in the VFL or in the Sample and the Waffle, Draper's probably been the pick of the bunch playing for South Adelaide, a club who has struggled this year in the Sample in that top division. But he's been one of their best throughout. Pretty much every game he's played, being consistent for them. Obviously, had that delayed start through injury. Eventually, got in with the SA group for their Carnival. Was one of their best, along with the Camporelli boys and Dyson Sharp, another who is a bottom major. But his explosiveness, pace, ball winning now is up there with the best. Great leadership qualities, and he's going to be a great one if he lands at the Eagles. I think he'll be a nice kind of complementary piece. When you've already got a Harvey, Reid, you've already got a Ruben Jimmy and Elijah Hewitt, he'd be a great fit for West Coast. And much like a few others in this top 5 or 6, he could go at pick 1, he could go at pick 6. It's just a very even bracket.
Yep, absolutely. All right, moving over to pick 4 now. So it's Adelaide and Jagga Smith, probably the best name in the draft at the moment. So what do we think here?
Yeah, so I think the Crows would love Draper. And I think if it's played out how we have, if he's not on the board, then Smith is going to be a very similar sought-after option for them. Again, Smith could be the one that lands at Richmond. He's had 3 games for Richmond's VFL side, and a bit like Draper as well, has looked very at ease in being able to find the ball against experienced talent. O'Sullivan was another one to feature in the VFL for the Tigers. A bit quieter, but had 2 goals from a dozen touches, which you can't really knock a teenager for in their VFL debut. But Smith has looked a level above, and that's really helped his stocks, I think, over the back half of the year. Was already a massive ball magnet, at school level and with the Oakley Chargers 2 years before this year. And he's really stepped up for Vic Metro this season after a pretty promising bottom age campaign for them last year. AFL Academy, good as well, once again. And yeah, he's just been absolutely prolific. But it's the VFL form that I think has really just kind of pushed him that bit further this year. So that's been very exciting to see. Great ball winner, clean, just knows how to get it out. He's very small, some might think undersized, but he really makes you pay with his ball work and his ability at the contest. So yeah, very promising. And yeah, for the Crows, you'd think that they're going for that midfield group. There's going to be a few others that they're going to have in their sights, like Langford. If O'Sullivan's there, absolutely. As I mentioned, Draper is that local talent, would be probably a bit higher on their list. So the Crows are going to be in quite an interesting position at pick 4 for sure.
Yeah, it's always exciting, those guys that have been able to get that experience in either VFL or SANFL, like Horn Francis. So coming through to number 5 now, tell me about Harvey Langford. Like, if there's anything good to come out of this home and away season for Melbourne, it's that we have a high pick. Tell me about Harvey Langford.
I don't want to nail him too hard into the Bontempelli type, but that's probably the name that a lot of people have kind of used for Langford in his ability as a really attacking-minded midfielder, great at the contest, great aerially, good size in midfield, but his work rate as well to be able to just break away from the engine room and find space and get on the end of a few kicks and move it forward. Absolutely stellar for Dandenong this year, along with a few others who are probably going to be in that top 20 range, but his efforts for Vic Country as well, and he took out the Lark Medal and MVP, so best player in the carnival alongside Gold Coast's Academy selection Leonardo Lombard. This would be very nice for Melbourne, but I think if the D's would be licking their lips if he's there at pick 5, and like we said, that's a great reality, but he could be gone at pick 1, or Adelaide or West Coast, or even North Melbourne. So very interesting one and as we get to probably the last of these, the top 5, 6 selections and who's going to be on offer. But he's done his stocks no harm across the year, just being very consistent with his ball winning and probably decision making as well has been very highly rated across the course of the year.
Yep, absolutely. Wouldn't mind adding more to the midfield, considering we might lose some. All right, next pick, number 6, we've got Gold Coast. Josh Smillie, tell me about him.
Yeah, so I'll get to the Suns in a sec. Yeah, Josh is, as you can see, 194 centimetres, and as a midfielder is just an absolute bull. So you're looking at that. Tom Green's probably not that. I don't think he's that tall, but Patrick Cripps is a very good example of just that big beast in the midfield, get in, wins it. And I think a lot of people, when they hear that, might not think that he's going to be too versatile, but he certainly can play forward line or back line, and has proven to do so over the last couple of years. So for the Suns, they're going to be in an interesting position though, just given Leo Lombard will be available to them as an academy selection. Do they have pick 6 come draft night? Will they trade it away? I'd like to see them, if they can, take a selection and have the points afterwards for a Lombard bid, which might come around pick 10. The issue is that probably prevents them from getting a Dan Rioli in. So they've really got to find their priorities. And given they want to be in a win now window, that pick 6 might not be theirs, might be Richmond's. And if that's the case as well, they'll be absolutely rapt to get a Smillie in who, again, could be pick 1 for the Tigers anyway. So if he's at pick 6, whatever club's got that selection, if it's the Suns or someone else, they're going to be absolutely rapt. But Josh had a very bright start to his year, already came into the year quite strong. But his form with the Eastern Rangers to start the season was immense. Probably not as damaging with the AFL Academy or at the higher level in the championships, but what he was able to do for the Rangers this year has been absolutely massive. So yeah, he's a great chance for pick 1. He's a great chance to be pick 6. This is kind of the situation that we're dealing with this year's picks.
Yep, absolutely. So moving now to pick 7, it's the Saints, and we've gone with Murphy Reid, another midfielder.
Yeah, he's probably one that's probably didn't come into the season that highly rated, like your Smillies, your O'Sullivans, your Smiths. But what he's been able to do throughout the year, and probably mostly with Vic Metro, has been, just full of class. Great midfield option that can go forward. And he started the year with Sandy, quite strongly. He was a great performer in last year's grand final win. But what he's been able to do this year, he's only played a couple of games, just given a large portion of his year was with the Carnival. But started strongly alongside Taj Houghton, Levi Ashcroft. When Houghton got injured, and since they've come back to Sandy, he's really taken that form that he took from throughout the national championships and back to Sandringham, and has been absolutely stellar for them. So clean ball user, very crafty, got a good goal sense when he's in the front half as well. So for a club like the Saints, who wouldn't mind a local talent as well, they don't mind plucking them out of Sandringham. He'd be quite a nice little addition. Offers a bit of run as well, which I think they just need that extra gear in their midfield. Add in, your defensive minded in Wind, Hager, a lot of power in your Philippus and your Owens, and he'd be a nice one to complement those kind of guys for the future at St Kilda.
Yeah, they've got a nice little future coming. So pick 8. Got the Bombers, and what for Jack Whitlock, a key forward?
Yeah, this is where it probably opens up a little bit more. So you can probably look at your Sam Laylas, your Harry Armstrongs, Job Shanahan's, a few different options, a few different, firepower pieces. Layla's probably more of that midfield that knows how to find the goals, whereas the other 3 are your key forward options. And I'd probably take Whitlock ahead of maybe a Shanahan and an Armstrong. Shanahan's been fantastic, and Essendon fans might know him very well for his form in the VFL for their side over the past month or two. But Whitlock, just a bit more commanding, 200 centimetres in height, that kind of prototype. And I think it'd be a nice kind of balance with what they're getting out of Nate Caddy. But yeah, he's been dominant for the Murray Bush Rangers for most of the year, along with brother Matt, who has swung up and back forward, but even when they're beside each other, they're both managing to find 4 or 5 goals apiece. As we can see as well, can pinch hit in the ruck, which is something I think Brad Scott would like as well. He likes that kind of 2-ruck system. When they enter next year with both Sam Draper and Nick Bryan off contract, they're going to want to think about what their pieces are moving forward. The Bombers, though, are another one of these clubs that have a bit of an interesting situation at play here. So Isaac Kako, their next generation academy talent, will be on their list at the end of the draft. It's just a matter of how they get him and when a bid comes. He could be a top 10 selection, could fetch that bid. So will they have enough points to make this selection and then get Isaac in potentially in the next 10 selections after? So that's something that they'll have to get their ducks aligned to. But it should be able to work out for them, you'd think, as long as a Kako bid doesn't come in quite surprisingly early, and then their plans might blow up a little bit. So I don't know if they'll be able to trade themselves deeper into the draft to make sure that they can get an early selection and then get Kako a bit later. But I'd like to think they'd be pretty safe at pick 8. It's probably going to be a bit more of a worry if they made the finals and then had pick 12 or something. But this should be a bit more straightforward. So as mentioned, a few more key forwards that I can look at is a Harry Armstrong, a Job Shanahan, a Jack Whitlock or Matt Whitlock. I think Jack's probably just got the edge there. But then Sam Layla is another one that I don't think you can put a line through for the Bombers either.
Yeah, love a pair of key forward brothers. So moving now to pick 9, and I guess 10. So Fremantle have both these picks. We're starting with Tobie Travaglia.
Yeah, he's really come into his own this year. Didn't have a quiet bottom age campaign by any means. Took out Bendigo's best and fairest, and that comes ahead of a kid called Harley Reid, who was at Bendigo last year. So did pretty well. Obviously, Harley had that benefit of having a bit more of a stretched year with carnival commitments. He played a few VFL games, but Tobie was very consistent. Nice half-back flanker, pushes up onto the wing. I think he could probably roll through the midfield a little bit as well, but very clean ball user. Great aerially for a player of his size as well. Just quick, pacey, smart decision maker. And I think Blues fans might have got a nice look at him a couple of weeks ago in the VFL and didn't look out of touch at all. So for Fremantle, they probably want a bit more of that outside run. Not necessarily in the back half when they've got their Heath Chapmans and Jordan Clarks, but he could be a player that frees them up a little bit to play a bit more further up the field.
Yeah.
But in saying that, he could slot onto a wing, which I think is an area that they would like to kind of sharpen a little bit. Can play midfield, can play defense. And for the Dockers who may or may not have this selection on draft night, if they're going to probably hold 9 or 10, you'd like to think. He's probably going to be one that's in their sights for sure.
Yeah. And if they do get that 10th pick via Collingwood, moving on. Yep. So we've got Beau Allan.
Yeah, so top WA kid. So obviously the local tie is there for the Dockers, but it gets even closer. He's been with Peel Thunder and been playing in their VFL side for a large portion of this year as well, and has looked really great at the waffle level. But with WA as well, he probably entered the year as more of a third tall defender, and has really grown into a big-bodied midfielder who can play both roles still. So we mentioned Dan Curtin earlier in the show, probably not the same build or prototype, but think about that versatility and maybe what the Dockers would have liked last year, having not had a first round pick, and then maybe trying to get something a bit similar with Bo Allan. So he's been absolutely fantastic for just about every side he's played for this year. He's WA. He was a great standout. Didn't quite get the MVP, but obviously he's battled some issues throughout the year as well. So he'll be an interesting one to round out the top 10. Again, there's going to be heaps of names for the Dockers to look at, but I'd like to think if they manage to get the Travaglia and Allan double, it's a really nice kind of forward defensive mix. Two different types of players entirely, but you're kind of covering multiple lines there and two players that could work in that kind of circle as well. So yeah, that's probably what the Dockers could look at. But again, Xavier Lindsay, Sam Layla, some of these guys that we haven't named yet are some options as well for the Dockers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that wraps it up for the top 10. Now, obviously, again, subject to change. This is just our first sort of almost a mini mock draft that we're taking a look at. So what have we got in store for until, I guess, draft night?
Yeah, it's like 2-3 months till the draft. I'm trying to remember where we're at the moment.
Pretty early on. But
there's heaps, So obviously we'll have more extended mock drafts once we get probably out of that trade period, when we kind of know what the shape of the first round looks like at the very least. So there'll be heaps of pick swaps coming, and obviously our draft order on site is live as they happen as well. So once a trade drops, you can head to our site and you'll find all that there. But on top of that, ahead of the draft, we'll have, on top of those mock drafts as well, club by club analysis, player profiles, best from each kind of state, and obviously a lot of the news that comes out on who clubs could be eyeing, and some draft interviews as well, and combine results. There's going to be absolutely heaps on zerohanger.com, and then we'll be having plenty of video content to bring you on YouTube as well.
Of course. All right. Well, thank you, Mitch, for all of that. And a big thank you as well to Footy Stuff on YouTube. Check out his channel. He puts together all those compilation videos that we're looking at for all these draft prospects. Stay tuned on the website, and we'll see you on the next one.